All right, and just before we started off the program, there was a breaking news that came in saying that the federal government has increased the tariff rate to 225 kilowatts per hour and is applicable to Band A customers. Band A customers are those serviced with 10 to 20 hours a day of power. Let's understand this more. Professor Yemi joins us virtually now. He's an energy expert with the University of Lagos. Professor good afternoon. I don't know if to say good afternoon with this increase, because Nigerians are already squeezed on many sides, and this is another squeeze added to the existing ones. Hello, Professor I cannot hear you. I don't know.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Now?
Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
I can hear you now. Okay. I want to say that Nigerians are taxed needlessly with the just recently announced increase in tariff. What we need to understand is that this is targeted at increase in production. It's going to be cheaper at the end of the day for the categories that is targeted now, because those are high income earners and commercial sector that tend to consume more, and they are clamored for the fact that they are willing to pay slightly more if they have the supply. So the issue is now a question of demand and supply. On the one hand, talking about the business side of it. Two, there's no way generation by conventional distribution structure will be expensive compared to diesel and other alternatives. So what the government is trying to do, technically, is to pull back a kind of similarly wasteful subsidy regime and plow it to encourage increase in production, particularly from the GENCOs. And that will also stimulate the sector for us to have increase in power sector investment, which I haven't had in a couple of years. So looking at it from the viewpoint of technicality and sector reality, an average Nigerian user or consumer of electricity is willing to pay slightly more provided they have access. And that is what you are looking at in this scenario, meaning those who have been enjoying 10 to 20 hours can now enjoy between 15 to 24 hours, and the hours they subscribe to alternative sources of diesel and embedded, which is quite expensive, will not be readily available to them. Cumulatively, power will not be cheaper if it's available.
All right, Prof, but doesn't that mean...
Because the alternative is to go right. Yes, please, I'm with you.
Doesn't that mean that the rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer? I mean, because I don't think this automatically means that generation will increase. Perhaps that's what it means. Please correct me. But if we say everybody is happy with, if you were doing...
No. I'm with you, but I think that...
So, Professor K, I was asking, doesn't this mean that the rich will get richer, this time for energy supply, electricity supply?
Ultimately.
And the poor will get poorer, because those who have been enjoying most of the hours, which is 10 to 20 hours, will now be enjoying about 15 to 20 to 30 hours. Doesn't that deprive those who have been enjoying a couple of hours, you know, taking a little that they had?
Definitely no. What it simply means is that investors will be encouraged to come in, and then we'll also have to explore alternatives. Then government will also
Wow, sounds like...
Government will have to look at it as it, because Nigerians can now take charge and regulate their consumption pattern. If you wish to be on 2 hours consumption, you know you can afford 2 hours of stable electricity. You're going to patronize appropriate disco for the 2 hours of consumption you're going to have. And you are not able to do that if you don't regulate your consumption. That is why presidential metering initiative is key. Meaning government can now focus on appropriate metering so that Nigerians will pay for actual electricity that is consumed. Because I've always argued that it is criminal to pay for electricity that you have not consumed. Meaning investors can now target strategic sectors because state governments are going to come on board. Gradually, they free up the space. It's a question of demand and supply. If you have 4,000 megawatts to ration in a country of about 200 million plus, it's not going to drive us anywhere. Because that is the kind of amount of megawatts we've been kind of rationing since privatization. That was similar to what we had under the old NEPA and PSCN. So we haven't really had aggregate increase in generation, which will have enabled discos to have more to distribute to consumers. So the industry is trying to amass megawatts. Average homes and offices are also trying to amass megawatts. And the government is saying, oh, you production sector, you should have more. Because if we generate, it's going to stimulate economic development and growth ultimately, as against spending most of their earnings on diesel and other alternatives. So ultimately, it's the...
All right, Professor. Okay, I really wish we could have more conversation on this, but do stay with us here on Business Morning, Business Incorporated. We'll certainly follow up on this conversation to get more understanding. I hope we can get Professor Oke. If not, we'll get someone who would help us to understand some of the implications. But from what Professor Oke is saying, this is obviously having its focus on the industrial sector of the country, the real sector, to give them even more power, because they have indicated that they do not mind paying more. So I think the correct thing is not between 10 to 20 hours, is minimum of 20 hours. So those who have been enjoying minimum of 20 hours are the ones affected. They're the ones captured in the band A, and they're the ones who would have to pay more for the electricity, with the option of increasing availability of electricity, which, I mean, if done, is going to boost production in the country and feed into our real sector and our GDP at the end of the day. Professor Oke, thank you so much. Unfortunately, the network will not allow us to complete this conversation, but thank you so much for your time and your explanation.